remember saying stop. He slammed my head against the wall, and I remember the pain.
Something drastically wrong is happening in how sexual assault cases are being handled.
We are getting no justice.
There have been evil people in positions of authority that have used the data to cook the books.
He was never arrested. There was never a search warrant. This is about justice.
I had been told that I needed to go back in and change the clearance code.
And what's wrong with that?
It's not truthful. And I think it just gives the appearance that we're able to clear more of these rapes than we actually are.
It just didn't meet my threshold of an arrest. It just didn't.
When the suspect admits to it in front of you in a recorded
I'm
interview,
not going
that's
to argue the law with you.
Janesville is a river town.
It's a friendly little town.
A major highway expansion cuts through the cornfields here in southern Wisconsin, 30 minutes north of the Illinois border, making way for more people to pass through Janesville on their way to somewhere else. But that wasn't the case for a Michigan man, now 33, who stopped here with something else in mind.
She just seemed really young and he seemed really old. Too old to be with her.
Andy Leischer worked the front desk at the Ramada just off Interstate 39.
What do you remember?
It was a hot tub. Them just being really a little too close. Even through the security camera, it just felt awkward.
Leischer's talking about a young teenage girl he saw around the hotel multiple times with an older man. This time, Andy saw something he thought crossed a line.
There was an intimacy happening, you know, kissing and that kind of thing.
What was at stake in your mind?
The rest of that girl's life.
So he called police. After several hours of questioning and a search of his hotel room, police arrested the man in question, Brian Kind.
All right, I have two files. They're both entitled State of Wisconsin versus Brian S. Kind.
Brian Kind is awaiting trial for the second-degree sexual assault of a child, possession of child pornography, and other charges. He pled not guilty.
Did you go to the room of Mr. Kind?
We went up to the room, which was number 343, and made contact at the door with Mr. Kind.
Do you question him about any possible sexual relationship?
Yes. He said there was no sexual contact between the two. However, they have kissed.
But at this pre-trial hearing, Detective Tom Beshens said the story evolved when he interviewed the teen.
Initially, she denied that there was any sexual contact, but admitted to kissing, going on dates, that type of activity. However, eventually she did say that they had sexual contact, and she estimated approximately 200 times.
Approximately 200?
Correct.
You're not talking about an offender who lives in this city and offends in this city, that is on our radar and that we can keep watch on. We're talking about somebody that we had previously no idea existed, using the internet.
Investigators say Brian Kind met the young girl online.
He was living in Michigan at the time. I believe he drove here when they met, but would drive regularly. We were told that they communicated over the internet, exchanged pictures, videos, that kind of stuff, which led us to searching those items.
At some point, you'll come to understand that he did have some kind of evidence, it sounds like, on his cell phone.
When they did that examination, they found photos and videos of that victim, nude and engaged in sex acts. And then they found additional photos of other girls who also appeared to be underage. We see images of this child, nude images, and we were able to determine that it was a 13-year-old child, and then images of Brian with that child. He was able to tentatively ID the child as a girl living in the Maryland area.
How many were there?
3 total girls that we found. There's the girl who was local here, the girl that was in the Baltimore area, and then a girl in Ohio.
Detective Beshen alerted authorities in Ohio and Maryland, but we discovered Brian Kind had been on the radar of 2 police agencies in Maryland since as far back as 2015, nearly 3 years before his arrest in Wisconsin. My colleague Mark Fahey and I found the case buried in a trove of closed-out rape incident reports that we reviewed from the Baltimore County Police, who cleared the case, not by arresting Brian Kind, but by using something called exceptional clearance.
It is essentially where the police have identified who the offender is who perpetrated the crime, but they are unable for some reason to make an arrest.
Erica Smith is a unit chief for the Bureau of Justice Statistics with the Department of Justice.
Clearance, and exceptional clearance specifically, tells us a whole lot about how police are handling cases. Arrest is just a small piece of the picture, and the percentage that were these other categories of exceptional clearance could potentially be telling.
As far back as 2013, police in Baltimore County have touted their high clearance rate as among the nation's best in relation to how well they solve crimes. But like the majority of police agencies, they don't report how many cases are cleared by arrest or by exception. So we investigated and found in 2017, Baltimore County reported clearing 61% of its rape cases, well above the national average. But our analysis found that it made arrests less than 30% of the time. Brian Kind's case was among those the agency counted as cleared, even though he was never questioned, never arrested, and the prosecutor's office never reviewed the case before it was exceptionally cleared. In 2015, Howard County Police opened a case after the teen's parents filed a report. For 7 months, Howard County Police gathered evidence, including photos, hotel records, and 70 pages of emails. In one email, he writes, "You know you can't tell anyone I come to see you." In another, he says, "You have to understand what would happen if they see me with you." Records show Kind spoke to the teen through a mobile app for months when she was just 12 years old. After she turned 13, he drove 10 hours from Michigan and met her for the first time at this local Wendy's. A month later, he met her here again and then took her to the Home-Style Inn, where records show he had sex with her on at least 3 occasions.
But the short route that Brian Kind took the teenage girl along while looking for a place to have sex may have made all the difference in the police investigation. That's because he crossed from Howard County into Baltimore County, meaning that anything that the two did together there would have to be investigated by the Baltimore County Police.
Baltimore County received the case in the fall of 2016. A detective reached out to the parents several times, but never added any new investigative information. The detective here never gained the cooperation of the family and ultimately cleared the case by exceptional means, leaving Kind on the street and bumping Baltimore County's clearance rate up. Kind is now facing trial for allegedly having sex with another underage girl. Baltimore and Howard County declined to go on camera to speak with us about the Brian Kind case. We asked a sex crimes expert to look at the case and help us unpack what happened.
You've reviewed the case file that we've sent you.
Yes, I have.
He's Tom McDevitt, a retired lieutenant who spent 35 years with the Philadelphia Police Department. For 20 of those years, he helped supervise the Special Victims Unit.
It's quite obvious when you look at the case that you have a 28-year-old male who traveled a long distance to come and meet a young girl who was 13 at the time. Started the conversations when they were 12, but he was coming there pretty much for only one reason, and that was to have sexual relations with her. The first department did a pretty good job. I mean, they gathered a lot of evidence. They did multiple interviews. They didn't give up, which is good. They got subpoenas and got hotel records that shows that he was there. There's more than enough probable cause there to arrest him. There was enough there to prosecute.
I'm curious your take on, in the second jurisdiction, Baltimore County.
Unfortunately, sexual acts accounted in another jurisdiction, and the case was referred to that jurisdiction along with all the evidence. And it looks like that jurisdiction, prior to starting any investigation, decided to contact the family to see if they're still willing to come in. And at that point, they were unable to have the family come in, and they closed their case. You don't need the victim to take the stand, but you would need the victim to make the complaint, which she already did in the one jurisdiction. So you would have a case.
We analyzed crime data for Baltimore County Police and found exceptional clearances make up the majority of rapes cleared in Baltimore County, year after year. In 2016, they touted a 70% clearance rate for solving rapes, but we found more than half of those cleared rapes were exceptionally cleared. Baltimore County would not comment about its use of exceptional clearance, citing pending litigation over how it handles rape investigations. But a spokesperson for Baltimore County Police said the agency did not have probable cause to arrest Brian Kind. But according to FBI rules, they must have enough evidence to support an arrest and forward the case for prosecution before it can be exceptionally cleared. McDivitt says,
in jurisdictions that have high clearance rate and low arrest rate, I'd really question the statistics. That means that something's going on. People are saying they don't want to prosecute or they don't want to be involved for some reason. But you should never have a high clearance rate and a low arrest rate.
But like Baltimore County, the majority of police agencies don't break down how many cases are cleared by arrest versus exceptional means when they report in to the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting System. For those agencies, even the FBI and the Department of Justice don't know how many cases are cleared by exception. For decades, the DOJ and FBI has been trying to fix the problem and bring greater transparency to how violent crimes are solved. Their solution is the NIBRS system. It's a new way to track crime that's being rolled out all over the country.
My name is Edwin C. Rossler Jr. I'm Chief of Police of the Fairfax County Police Department in Fairfax, Virginia. Recently, I was appointed as the FBI's chairman for the conversion to National Incident-Based Reporting, which is a conversion from the Uniform Crime Reporting System. NIBRS provides a drill down, if you will, of specific crime, and it allows us to be more transparent and tell the story of crime.
Rossler had one of his detectives show us how the new system forces transparency. It distinguishes exceptional clearance from arrest, and before clearing a crime exceptionally, now agencies have to explain why they're closing cases that way. Reasons like the prosecutor wouldn't take the case or the victim dropped out, and now their reasons get publicly reported.
And so by transparently disclosing case by case which ones get closed by arrest and which ones get closed by exceptional means, in some ways, some agencies may not welcome that transparency.
And that's the case. That's the fight we have. That's why I've been asked to go across the country with my law enforcement peers to tell my story. You gotta get rid of the fear and anxiety as a chief or a sheriff. You need to be transparent.
But just as NIBRS improves transparency for exceptional clearances, we discovered it creates a whole new problem. It no longer tracks cases classified as unfounded. These are reports where the police don't believe the alleged victim or don't think a crime has occurred. And when police unfound a crime, they get to erase it from the official crime books altogether. But some cities have abused the use of unfoundeds.
If unfounding is being used inappropriately to dispose of complaints that are problematic on some level, so that those complaints never get counted as crimes known to the police, that's problematic.
Cassia Spahn is a nationally renowned criminologist at Arizona State University. We shared our discovery that the new FBI crime reporting system no longer tracks unfounded cases.
I find that mind-boggling and baffling. It's hard for me to imagine that the Bureau of Justice Statistics and the Department of Justice would propose a system that ignores unfounded cases.
Police departments in Chicago, St. Louis, Philadelphia, and more have all faced scandals for unfounding too many reported crimes, including rape.
Unfortunately, there have been evil people in positions of authority that have used the data to cook the books.
And this September, the city of Cleveland agreed to pay $1 million to the families of 6 women murdered by Anthony Sowell, aka the Cleveland Strangler. In 2008, a woman reported that Sowell tried to rape and kill her. Police didn't believe her and unfounded the case. It would be several more months, rapes, and murders of other women before police would open a new investigation. Sowell is now on death row for the rape and murder of 11 women. But that very year, the FBI's new crime reporting system showed Cleveland didn't have any unfounded cases. It turns out the FBI appears to be falsely reporting 0 unfounded rape cases for every police agency in the nation using the new NIBR system.
Interesting is not even the right word to use, right? I mean, it has to be investigated in some way.
Erica Smith of the Bureau of Justice Statistics oversees the DOJ's efforts for the NIBR system. We told her what we found for communities like Prince William County, Virginia, where the FBI numbers also show 0 unfounded rapes in that community. But in fact, according to records we uncovered, police there unfounded nearly 4 in 10 of every rape reported in 2016, a rate at or above what's led to scandals elsewhere.
I think what I'm hearing you say about these additional cases that don't show up in the data is that we're getting only a piece of that puzzle.
And a big, important piece seems to be missing entirely.
Correct. That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, there's definitely a lot of work to be done to understand the nature of this and potentially what could be done about it. I have to wonder how much the FBI realizes this is happening.
The FBI has not responded to questions about why unfounded cases were left out of the new system. As for Prince William County, we took our findings to Chief of Police Barry Barnard, who declined to go on camera, but allowed us to record audio. He said he was unaware of the agency's high unfounded rate until we showed him.
We acknowledge that we have a level of unfounded rapes that is concerning to me.
As a result, the chief launched an internal investigation, reviewing all unfounded rapes in his agency going back 5 years. And already, the agency has reclassified more than 10% of the unfounded rapes it reviewed for 2017, putting them all back on the books.
I think we have some work to do. We have a classification, clearing, coding issue, if you will, that we need to work on here. We do not have issues with the proper investigation of these crimes.
But Erica Smith at the DOJ is very concerned because by 2021, every police agency in the nation has a deadline to transition to the new system. And that means every community will lose the ability to track how often their police unfound crimes.
The federal government, through the federal NIBR specifications, could help spur every state to collect those data. And I think it is a compelling enough public policy issue that if I were the ultimate decision maker on this, that would be the direction I would take it, because it is critically important. To me, there would be no valid argument against it. The first entry point to the criminal justice system is reporting to the police. And so you need to know what happens to all of those incidents. You know, it's not just whether an arrest was made or a clearance was made. It is, did you believe my story enough to do anything with it?